My husband stole our daughter's college fund to impress his mistress. But our 12-year-old destroyed their plans, and they never saw it coming. Upon entering our bedroom, I saw Dorian frantically packing clothing into a suitcase. With no time to spare, they hurriedly packed as if the home were on fire, and they avoided making eye contact. "What are you up to?" I inquired. He paid little attention to what was happening above him either. What I should have done years ago. His words struck me like a punch to the gut. This was the way the marriage ended after 22 years. In my jammies, I stood there, taken aback, as he tossed shirts into suitcases. "Dorian, stop." I reached out to take his arm, but he ignored me as if I were an unknown. Finally meeting my eyes, he said, "Speak to me." "What's happening?" The sight that greeted me was one of utter terror. Completely null. Nothing but icy resolve. Not a trace of shame, melancholy, or regret. "I'm leaving Sarah today. I'd want to start by saying how much I appreciate you all coming along to hear my tales of family heroes and heroines. Please consider subscribing if you think children should have access to financial stability. All it costs is a little time and effort to help us get this message out to more families." We will now examine Iris's findings. Surrounding me, the room swirled. No way this is real. Our dinner conversation yesterday revolved around Iris's college applications. Good night and a kiss on the forehead were yesterday's greetings. I was a wife yesterday, not this woman I was becoming today. My question, "Is there someone else?" slipped out of my lips before I could catch it. Halfway into the suitcase, Dorian halted with a dress shirt. I thought I caught a glimpse of something moving over his face for a split second. It vanished after that. This has nothing to do with other people. I knew. The way he avoided looking at me directly, the fact that his phone had been facing down for months, the endlessly late meetings, that this was about me wanting to breathe again. My voice sounded pitiful and insignificant as I asked, "Where will you go?" These suspicions had been simmering for a long time, but now they were shouting at me. With a final zip, he sealed the suitcase, saying, "I'll figure it out." The true terror began to set in as she said, "I need you to transfer my half of the savings to my personal account." Assets included Iris's college fund, our shared bank accounts, and all that we had accomplished as a couple. My bare feet slapped against the hardwood floors as I sprinted downstairs. Worry creased 12-year-old Iris's cheeks as she glanced up from her cereal. I lied and it tasted bitter. "Mom, what's wrong?" I asked my mother. "Nothing, sweetheart. Dad's just going on a trip." With trembling fingers, I snatched my laptop and entered the login credentials for our bank account. I gazed at the computer in astonishment as the website loaded. There was $247.83 in our checking account. There was no balance in our savings account. Iris's college fund, which we had been contributing to for 12 years and which was supposed to contain $90,000, showed no activity. No. The word barely escaped her lips. I hit refresh and said, "No, no, no." Nothing changed with the figures. I reviewed the record of all transactions. Just 3 days ago, Dorian transferred everything while I was at my book club meeting. Absolutely everything. Our joint funds, not only his portion, but also Iris's future. There was a severe case of hand tremors. I could hardly type. In the hopes that this was an error, I contacted the bank. What the customer support guy affirmed was something I was already aware of but still couldn't accept. Every account was accessible to Dorian. The money transactions were legal. "Mom?" A distant voice sounded like Iris's. "You're terrifying me," I said to my kid. Observed her intently. With her dark hair tied back in a ponytail and her school uniform still on, she stood by the door, her backpack prepared to go. Little did she know that her father had just abandoned her and her destiny. We both spun around when we heard footsteps on the stairs. With his baggage in tow, Dorian made an appearance. With an air of disdain, he ignored us and continued on his way to the front door. "That's it?" Surprisingly, my voice was much stronger than I had anticipated. He paused, his hand still on the doorknob, and said, 22 years, and you're just walking away." Iris gently rose from the breakfast table, continuing, "I left you a voicemail explaining everything." "I don't want a voicemail. I want you to look at your daughter and explain why you're abandoning her." So said the woman. She did not so much as scream, rush over to him, or implore him to remain. She simply observed him with those perceptive eyes that mirrored his own intelligence. For a little moment, Dorian looked over at Iris. "It will all make sense when you're older," he assured her. His eyes shifted to mine and he said, "Don't make this harder than it has to be." As he walked away, the door clicked shut behind him, but it seemed louder than if he had smashed it. The kitchen fell into an abrupt hush, and I stood with Iris. There was a gurgling sound from the coffee dispenser. An hum resounded from the fridge. I looked outside and saw a car start up and drive away, to which Iris responded, "Is he coming back?" To spare her any embarrassment, I considered making up a story about how Daddy needed some space. However, it became clear from her expression that she was already aware of the solution. She nodded, taking the time to think about it like she did with everything else. "I don't think so, baby." Someone asked, "Did he take our money?" And I was taken aback. With care, I uttered the words, "Some of it. My college fund too." I was speechless. All I did was nod. Carrying her cereal bowl to the sink, Iris set it down. After giving it a quick rinse and patting it dry, she stashed it in the cupboard. Suddenly her youthful face took on an expression I had never seen before as she shifted her attention to me. "Rest assured, Mom," he said, "I handled it." His remarks were so unexpected and delivered with such composure that I nearly chuckled. "Held what? You're only 12 years old. How could you have possibly handled that?" However, her tone caused me to pause for contemplation. She seemed to know something I didn't, but there was no naivete or hollow consolation. Iris grabbed her bag and made her way to the door, asking, "What do you mean, sweetheart?" After she said, "I'll miss my bus if I don't leave now. We'll talk after school, okay?" I was left alone in a house that felt huge and empty, with questions I couldn't answer and no idea of what the future held. During that first week without Dorian, the house had a strange vibe. Quiet, yet vigilant in a way. Whenever I would fold his forgotten laundry, see his coffee cup in the dishwasher, or hear Iris's alarm clock blaring through the walls in the morning, I would find myself inconsolable. However, Iris continued to function normally in our broken reality. She would show up in the kitchen at 7:15 every morning, all dolled up, with her lunch all packed and her backpack in its proper place. She would plant a peck on my cheek and reply, "Have a good day, Mom," in the same upbeat tone she had used when we were all living under the same roof. It made me feel uneasy. As she was making her way to the door one morning, I gently grasped her wrist and whispered, "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Those stern dark eyes of hers met mine. It wasn't well with me. "I'm fine, Mom." "Are you?" Dad asked. Piece by piece I was crumbling, but I couldn't let her know. I felt his hand squeeze as he said, "Just checking on you." He nodded and said, "I know. But I'm really okay." Later that day, I opted to consult my sister Janet by calling her. Upstairs in her room I could hear Iris talking while I dialed. The sound of her hurried typing reverberated through the flooring. Like most kids these days, she probably vented her emotions online with her peers about what had happened. Warmly concerned, Janet asked, "Sarah, how are you holding up?" I collapsed onto the sofa and confessed, "I don't know. Iris is being so strong, but I'm worried she's bottling everything up. She hasn't cried once. Some kids process differently." "You sobbed for weeks after Dad left, but I snapped and shattered Mom's favorite vase." The clicking upstairs paused for an instant before picking up the pace. Wondering what it was, Janet inquired, "What's that sound?" While I was saying, "Iris is on her computer," I then on to say, "Probably homework or games." However, something still bothered me. For a game, the rhythm would have to be excessively steady and deliberate. I prepared Iris's go-to supper, grilled cheese and tomato soup, after my call with Janet ended. Around 6:30, I went to her door and knocked. "Come in," she summoned. With her dinner plate in hand, I pushed open the door. With her laptop screen tilted away from me, Iris sat at her desk. Upon my arrival, she swiftly shut it. "Brought you some food, honey." "Thanks, Mom." Taking the tray, she avoided looking at anyone. I looked over at her desk as I dropped the tray down and said, "You can set it on my nightstand." Her school planner, a handful of textbooks and a jumble of documents. Nothing out of the ordinary, but her placement of the items gave the impression that she had planned them out in advance of my arrival. I inquired in a casual tone, "What were you working on?" "History report on the Industrial Revolution." She restarted her laptop, but I briefly caught a peek of what she was looking at before she minimized it. It was clearly not a school document but an email program. With a courteous but firm dismissal, I said, "I'm good. Thanks for dinner. Need any help?" I departed after kissing her on the crown of her head, but an uncomfortable sensation persisted. The trend persisted for some days thereafter. As my own feelings of bewilderment and loss deepened, Iris continued her flawless routine. In the middle of the night, I would have a panic attack, which would cause me to check our bank accounts excessively and lead me to call Dorian's number, only to get his voicemail. At the same time, Iris would appear fresh and calm every morning when she emerged from her room. The nightly typing persisted. It would sometimes continue until almost midnight. It came to my attention on Friday night while I was putting away Iris's clean laundry. Her desk was cluttered with science textbooks, with just one sheet of paper visible. Something about the layout piqued my interest, and I should have known better than to look. The message thread was written out. My heart froze at the sight of those names up above. Theirs, Dorian, and Ingrid. I retrieved the paper with trembling hands. Prior to Dorian's departure, the texts were sent 5 weeks ago. Something regarding how to deal with Sarah when the time came up, along with meeting times and hotel reservations, was in their conversation. I took a firm seat on Iris's bed and stared at the proof in my palms. Without my knowledge, my daughter, who is 14 years old, had gained access to her father's private email account. What gave rise to such possibility? Mom. Iris's voice echoed through the entryway, startling me. Standing there with her dinner plate empty, she looked at me with her serene, evaluating eyes. Just calm observation. No need to freak out or feel ashamed about being discovered. She carefully placed her plate on the table and shut the door to her bedroom, asking, "Iris, where did this come from?" In my attempt to explain how Dad isn't great with passwords, I froze mid-sentence. "How long have you known about Ingrid?" 6 weeks. About the money. I figured that out the day before he left. 6 weeks. My kid had been living with this knowledge the whole time I was blissfully oblivious. For some reason, I was nauseated. Iris sat on the bed next to me, suddenly appearing more like her actual age of 14, and asked, "Why didn't you tell me?" I wanted to be sure, and I wanted to figure out what to do about it. "Honey, this isn't your responsibility." "Yes, it is." She spoke with authority. "He stole my college fund. He lied to both of us. Someone had to do something." With fresh eyes, I surveyed her chamber. As if by magic, everything had transformed. Her regimented workspace, her uncanny serenity. Before answering the question, "What else do you know?" Iris rose from her bed and retrieved a spiral notepad from beneath her. She hesitated no longer before presenting it to me. There were pages upon pages of notes, images, diagrams, and lists of numbers that could have been account or phone numbers. "Iris, what is all this research?" She returned to her seat next to me. "Dad thinks he's smart, but he's careless. He uses the same password for everything. He doesn't clear his browser history. He doesn't even log out of his accounts when he's done." I combed through what appeared to be vacation plans, financial records, images of text messages, and painstaking documentation. Even her own father had been the target of my daughter's spying. Pronouncing the phrase, "this is," was a challenge for me. This is incredible and terrifying. I learned most of it from YouTube tutorials. Computer security is really interesting once you understand the basics. She gave me an expression that belied her years. "Iris, this kind of thing, hacking into someone's accounts, it's not legal." She stated it in such a casual manner that it sent shivers down my spine. "Neither is stealing $90,000 from your daughter's college fund." My tiny girl had grown up. I had never met this person before. Someone cold-blooded, laser-focused, and fearless. After Iris asked, "What are you going to do with all this information?" she returned the journal and cautiously closed it. "I'm still working on that part. But don't worry, Mom, I've got this handled." That sentence reappeared. Exactly the same thing she had said the morning her father disappeared from our life. I responded, my voice trembling. "Show me everything." But suddenly I realized they were heavy and that I might not recognize my own daughter at all. Since this nightmare started, Iris had never hesitated before. "Some of it's pretty bad," she said to her mother. "Show me," she said, opening her laptop and locating a folder called Science Fair Project. Financial documents, correspondence logs, and evidence of identity fraud were among the many subfolders found inside. Crankiness in my belly. "The incident began when Dad got a second phone," Iris explained as she opened a folder. "He thought he hid it in his closet, but I saw him checking it one night when he thought I was asleep." Images captured by Iris through the crack in Dorian's bedroom door appeared on the screen. Slightly blurry, but distinct enough to reveal that he was composing a message on an unfamiliar device. According to Iris, I waited until he left it charging in his office one day. I only had maybe 10 minutes, but I got into his messages. Her fingers moved across the keyboard with practiced efficiency. That's how I found Ingrid. A fresh window sprang up, filling it with screenshot after screenshot of text messages. The things my spouse said to another woman, referring to me as if I were something to be removed. Curious about Sarah's condition, they planned to manage it jointly and talk about ways to handle a divorce without losing too much money. I was on the verge of throwing up, and it's only getting worse. And Iris said, "Mom," before navigating to a different folder. The accounting firm that Dad owns is where Ingrid Sterling works. She manages the trust accounts and investments of her clients. You learned her workplace. I learned every detail about her. Every detail. Her home, her relatives, her job, her credit, and even her Netflix login. Speaking as if she were going over a school project, Iris kept her tone casual. She has a 2-year history of stealing from her clients. The proof was indisputable. Bank documents indicating the movement of funds from client accounts into personal ones. Unrealized charges for services that were never rendered. Investment statements that didn't reflect actual account balances. By some miracle, Iris had gained access to Ingrid's work computer and recorded every detail. Iris, how did you even get into their systems? Ingrid uses the same password for everything. Sterling 2011. That's her last name and the year she graduated college. I found that information on her LinkedIn profile. Iris said with a shrug. I looked down at my kid and the stranger sitting next to me and thought, people are really predictable with passwords. So, how did you acquire the necessary skills to do all of this? I primarily learned through YouTube and a few computer programming forums. The internet is a treasure trove of information, but you have to know where to look. With a click to another folder, my world turned upside down once more. I found bank statements under my name, but no accounts had ever been opened in my name. Requests for credit were sent using Iris's SSN. Loan paperwork containing false signatures. Mom, Dad didn't just take our money. He's been using our identities to get loans. The $75,000 from my college fund, that was just the down payment on a $200,000 loan he took out in my name. An almost whispered "what" escaped her lips. Thanks to your employment history and my credit history, he and Ingrid are buying a house together in Florida. A vice gripped Iris's jaw. Eventually, they would just go, leaving us to shoulder the financial burden. Surrounding me, the room swirled. Theft of personal information. Con trick. Our husband hadn't suddenly left us. He had planned to start a new life with his lover while deliberately ruining our financial prospects. But here's the thing, Iris went on to say, and her voice took on a new quality, a chilly, contented quality. She opened a separate document labeled Countermeasures and said, I caught them before they could complete the purchase. There were a plethora of official-looking papers within, including fraud reports for credit bureaus, complaints for banking authorities, and anonymous tips for Ingrid's workplace. For the past 5 weeks, Iris has been diligently working on this, she said. I documented everything first, then I started dismantling their plans piece by piece. What do you mean? Well, Ingrid got suspended from work yesterday. Her boss received an anonymous email with all the evidence of her embezzlement. Her clients are pulling their accounts. The state board is launching an investigation. I opened my mouth. You did that? Iris asked in a calm, outraged tone. She stole from elderly people saving for retirement. Mom, she deserved it. And that's just the beginning. She proceeded to show me several additional files. The bogus accounts that were opened in our names have been frozen by the credit agencies. The mortgage application for the house in Florida was rejected due to a flagged application. The eviction process for Ingrid began after her landlord received information regarding unlawful activities in her residence. As Iris selected the last folder, she gushed. But the best part is what I sent to her father. Dr. Robert Sterling was the daughter's father. His family's reputation is extremely important to him, and he is a well-known surgeon. All the proof, including a lengthy letter detailing his daughter's illicit activities, was sent to him. My head spun. As I asked, Iris, what have you done? She replied, I've protected us. She then shut her laptop and met my gaze. Dad thought he could steal from us and walk away clean. He thought we'd be too broken and stupid to fight back. He was wrong. But darling, this kind of thing, going after people like this, is dangerous. No more dangerous than letting them destroy our lives. Iris got to her feet and made her way to her window, where she stared at the ominous sky as the sun began to set. Mom, they didn't just take our money. They took my future. They took your security. They took everything we worked for, and gave it to themselves. As I saw my 14-year-old daughter, Her little form silhouetted against the glass, I began to understand her point. Iris fought for us while I sobbed and phoned Dorian's voicemail, pleading with him to return home. For my part, I questioned, what happens now? In the low light of her chamber, Iris appeared much older than her actual age, as she turned her attention back to me. Now we wait. Ingrid's world is falling apart, and she doesn't even know why yet. When Dad realizes what's happening, he'll panic. And when people panic, they make mistakes. How can you be so calm about all this? Because I'm not the one who has to be scared anymore, she responded without hesitation. They are. My thoughts kept racing that night to the sound of the child's slumber down the hall. She had rescued us, but how much did it hurt? What sort of individual has my daughter transformed into as a result? The question of what more she could do was even more terrifying. The steady, deliberate clicking of computer keys resurfaced at about midnight. In ways I didn't completely comprehend, Iris continued to work, plan, and protect us. I ought to have been appreciative. Actually, I was terrified. On a Tuesday afternoon, precisely at 2:15, the phone rang. While I was in the kitchen washing the lunch dishes, the name of Dorian sprang up on the screen. I scrambled for the phone while my hands remained soapy, my heart beating for reasons I couldn't fathom. Hello? My attempt at a loud voice failed. Sarah? Dorian's voice sounded different, tensioned, nearly desperate. I looked across at the living room, where Iris was supposed to be doing her schoolwork, and said, "We need to talk. Something very strange is happening." As I wiped my hands on a dish towel, I took a quick glance outside. What kind of strange? My bank called this morning. All my accounts have been flagged for suspicious activity. They've frozen everything pending some kind of federal review. He spoke quickly, in a panic. Standing in the kitchen doorway, Iris wore her school uniform as she spoke. And Ingrid. Ingrid lost her job yesterday. Security escorted her out of the building. I watched as she collected herself at the counter, poured herself a glass of water, and listened carefully. I tried to explain to Dorian that I don't get how it is relevant to my situation. It's just too coincidental. Ingrid's firing for an ill-founded embezzlement claim, and now my finances are in the crosshairs. Someone is out to get us, Sarah, someone with major technical abilities. Sarah put down her glass and walked over to the kitchen table, where she opened her laptop with the ease with which she did so often. As she swiftly typed, her screen flashed with what appeared to be numerous windows and data streams. I inquired, who would do something like that? Despite the fact that my gut begged the question. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Ingrid thinks it might be someone from her office. Perhaps an employee. Either she turned him down, or Dorian just stopped speaking. Did you hear the noise? I turned to Iris. A faint tone resounded over the phone line as she made a selection on her laptop. My question was, what sound? In a tone that betrayed his growing anxiety, Dorian explained, there was a beep like someone just accessed my email. Excuse me, Sarah, but someone is currently occupying my computer. I can watch the opening and closing of my emails as we speak. It's as if someone is reading my messages. Iris's fingers glided across the keyboard with the deftness of a concert pianist. Financial records, streaming data, and what seemed like email interfaces were all displayed on her screen. She had gained access to his system and was able to see his every move and read his every access. He grew skeptical as he said, Dorian, maybe you should hang up and call your bank. Dorian responded, no, wait. I need to ask you something directly. Iris looked up from her laptop and caught my eyes. Sarah, did you hire someone? A private investigator or a computer expert? Because if you did, you need to call them off right now. What they're doing is illegal. Before turning back to her screen, she shook her head slightly at me. I must admit, I did not employ any staff, I declared honestly. After asking, then who? Dorian's voice abruptly ended, and he began making frenzied typing noises. Someone just sent an email from my account to my boss. Sarah, they're impersonating me right now. What was in the email? I said, my voice quivering with anxiety. I'm not sure. Everything is happening so quickly. His breaths could be heard over the phone. Iris dismissed one window and opened another. They're in my social media accounts now. They're posting things, financial documents, private messages between me and Ingrid. Before she swiveled the screen away from me, I caught a glimpse of what appeared to be social media accounts and uploaded documents. Dorian, you need to contact the police if someone is hacking your accounts. Do you really believe I haven't tried? The police said that if the information being posted is true, then it's not harassment, it's whistleblowing. But how could anyone have access to true financial documents unless they were fraudulent? He paused. A sudden epiphany was dawning on him. Unless they were inside my actual accounts. False information about him wasn't being posted by someone. Someone was publishing actual proof of his wrongdoing. Sarah, I need you to understand something. The money I took, I was planning to pay it back. Ingrid and I were going to make it work, and then I was going to quietly replace everything. Nobody was supposed to get hurt, but you did take it temporarily. As a loan, Ingrid had this investment opportunity that was guaranteed to double our money within 8 months. His tone was getting more and more desperate. Iris looked up from her laptop once again, and I noticed a new expression on her face. We were going to surprise you and Iris with even more money than what was originally there. Rather than wrath or pain, icy logic. As she took notes, she listened to her father fabricate stories about stealing from his own family. Dorian, that's not how loans work. You can't take someone else's money without their permission and call it a loan. You don't understand the pressure I was under. Ingrid's father was threatening to cut her off financially if she didn't prove she could support herself. She needed that money to buy the house to show him she was serious about building a future. So you stole our daughter's college fund to impress your girlfriend's father. It wasn't stealing. Dorian's tone became raspy. It was an investment in all of our futures. Ingrid's family has connections. Once her father accepted her choices, he was going to help me start my own firm. We would have been wealthy. Sarah, wealthy enough to pay for Iris's college 10 times over. Iris shut down her computer with a gentle snap and arose. She approached me as I stood and delicately removed the phone from my grasp. Hi, Dad. Her voice exuded an air of tranquility. Iris, my darling, I am eternally grateful. Ingrid and I are being unfairly accused of being criminals. You must assure your mother that I would never steal from her, ever. However, you did steal from me. Iris's tone was casual, as if she were chatting about the weather. The 10-second pause on Dorian's end was due to his statement. You took $90,000 from my college account and used it as collateral for a mortgage application in Florida. Iris, who told you that? Nobody told me. I found out myself, along with copies of the forged loan documents where you used my social security number to secure additional credit. That's impossible. You're 14 years old. You couldn't possibly understand. I understand that you committed identity theft. I understand that Ingrid embezzled money from her clients. I understand that you both plan to disappear to Florida and leave Mom and me responsible for the debt you created. Iris, listen to me very carefully. Adults sometimes make complicated financial decisions that children can't fully grasp. What looks wrong to you might actually be. I have copies of everything, Dad. Every email between you and Ingrid. Every forged document. Every illegal transaction. I've been watching you for weeks. Dorian began to struggle with breathing. You've been watching me. Iris, what does that mean? It means I know about the second phone you thought you hid so well. I know about the fake investment accounts Ingrid created to hide the money she stole. I know about the house you tried to buy using my identity. Iris's tone was constant. And I know that when the money ran out and Ingrid got fired, she stopped returning your calls. Iris sat calmly at the kitchen table, continued to hold the phone, and asked, how could you possibly know about Ingrid not returning my calls? The answer was, because I'm monitoring all your communications. I've been watching both of you destroy yourselves piece by piece. Ingrid has apparently begun dating someone else. Yesterday, after her father financially cut her off, she blocked your number. The sound that emanated from the phone was a mix of sobs and screams. Iris, please. I know I made mistakes, but I'm still your father. I love you. I love your mother. I never meant for things to go this far. You prioritized her over us, Dad. You valued money more than your family. You took my future as collateral for your new life, Iris said in a level, truthful tone. Actions have consequences. You taught me that when you walked out of our house with your suitcase. Am I? I'm begging you. Whatever you've done, whatever you know, please just stop. I have nothing left. I'm living in my car because I can't pass a credit check to rent an apartment. I can't get a job because every background check shows financial fraud flags, please. Iris looked at me as she delivered her last message to her dad. You taught me something important, Dad. What you've shown me is that there are occasions when those who should be watching out for you fail to do so. It is imperative that you take precautions. After saying that, she ended the call. What followed was an ear-splitting stillness. Iris placed the phone on the counter and fixed me with her serene, serious gaze. "He won't return your call," she stated with an air of neutrality. "How do you know?" she asked herself. "Because now he knows I'm watching. And he knows that every move he makes I'll see coming." With that, she gathered her laptop and made her way to her room. "I have homework to finish." By alone in the kitchen, I came to terms with the fact that my daughter, who was 14 years old, had just methodically destroyed an adult man's life, and he had every right to do it. I stood there, staring at the phone, in my kitchen, long after Iris had gone into her room. Just like most kids do their homework with a level head, my daughter had just annihilated her father. Heavy, nearly smothering, was the hush. Some part of me wished I could be guilty. Anger welled up inside of me, and I considered storming into Iris's room to order her to undo its digital warfare. A more substantial portion of me, though I was unsure of its identity, experienced intense pride. We were safeguarded when my 14-year-old son was unable to do so for myself. While getting ready for the day, Iris showed up at breakfast the following morning appearing to be no different from any other middle schooler, as if the previous evening weren't spent systematically ruining the lives of two adults. She ate her cereal, checked her backpack, and kissed my cheek goodbye. She was making her way toward the door when I gently grasped her arm and said, "Iris, wait," she said with the grave look I'd come to recognize. "Are you okay?" As she cocked her head to the side. "I'm fine, Mom." Her emotionless reaction unsettled me. "My darling, you just had a very intense conversation with Dad. It's normal to feel upset, or confused, or—" "I'm not upset," Iris said, adjusting her bag straps. "So why wouldn't I be?" I asked. "Because of what happened yesterday with your father," I wondered. "I'm relieved. Now he knows that I know what he did, and he knows there are consequences for stealing from his family." Iris stood at the front entrance, her palm resting on the doorknob, as if to ask, "But don't you miss him? Even a little?" I was frightened by the detached manner in which she examined her emotions. I missed the dad I thought he was. But that person was never real, was he? He was just a character Dad played when it was convenient. Where was the outrage, the pain, and the clinging to the possibility that Daddy would return home and make amends? "Iris, I think it would be good for you to talk to someone, a counselor who can help you work through these big emotions." "I'm not having big emotions, Mom. I'm having appropriate emotions." She walked in. "But I'm open to talking to someone if that helps you feel better," I said as I contacted our pediatrician's office following Iris's departure for school. Dr. Patricia Reeves is a child psychologist who focuses on gifted children and those who have experienced trauma in their families. Dr. Martinez suggested her. "Listen closely, since gifted children often process difficult situations differently than their peers," Dr. Martinez explained. "They might intellectualize emotions rather than feeling them in traditional ways." I discovered that I needed to study my kid like a puzzle until Dr. Reeves could see her the next week. She kept up with her regular schedule of school, homework, and dinner help, but I noted some subtle differences that I hadn't seen previously. She had assumed full responsibility for our family's financial situation, making meticulous spreadsheets to record our diminished income and forecast our expenditures for the following 12 months. Before beginning the divorce process or asset recovery, she had studied up on legal aid services and assembled a folder of relevant documents. "Mom, you need to file for divorce immediately," she said to me one evening as I sat at the kitchen table doing my bills. She sat down across from me and said, "You're depressed, which is understandable, but not productive right now." "I'm not depressed, so I can think clearly about what needs to happen next." Her clinical assessment of my mental state hurt because it was totally true, but she insisted that Iris shouldn't let herself be distracted by such grown-up matters. For what seemed like an eternity, I had been moping about, praying that this nightmare would end. Nobody was doing anything substantial to ensure our future except Iris. The peaceful blues and greens of Dr. Reeves's office were complemented by the artwork of children displayed on one wall. Iris came into her first therapy appointment looking like she was going to a business meeting, which surprised me because I thought she would be apprehensive. "Hello, my name is Dr. Reeves. Your mom suggested that we talk about the changes happening in your family. I'm 14 years old, so I guess it's okay with me. I know this is probably required of me because of what I did to my father." Dr. Reeves blinked, obviously taken aback by the 14-year-old's candor. "Can you tell me about that?" Over the course of the following half an hour, Iris patiently laid out the whole scenario. Her account detailed the systematic destruction of Dorian and Ingrid's lives, the discovery of his affair, and the documentation of his financial crimes. She presented the data as if she were making a school presentation, speaking without showing any emotion. "What were your emotions at that time?" Dr. Reeves inquired. "Very much," Iris responded without delay. "He stole from me, so I made sure there were consequences. It felt like justice." "Do you ever feel sad about your father leaving?" "I feel sad that he chose to become the kind of person who steals from his own child. But I don't feel sad about him facing the results of that choice." Iris waited in the foyer as Dr. Reeves requested a private meeting with me after our session ended. "Mrs. Arden, your daughter is truly exceptional," Dr. Reeves tenderly started. "Her cognitive abilities are exceptional, and her emotional resilience is extraordinary. But is it healthy? Should a youngster be able to act out like that without experiencing shame or trauma? Even in exceptionally bright youngsters, reactions to trauma can range greatly. Iris has dealt with the immense pain of rejection and betrayal in an incredibly effective manner." The doctor stooped. "Some children fall apart when faced with this level of family dysfunction. Others, particularly those with strong analytical skills, respond by taking control of their environment. She's in good shape. She's perfectly well. She has thrived. Whether you're at ease with her becoming into that person is the question." Later that night, I discovered Iris back at her laptop in her room. Surveillance software or hacking tools weren't what I saw when I peeked over her shoulder. The file was named Digital Safety for Families, Warning Signs and Protection Strategies, and was saved in Word format. She scrolled down to show me detailed sections about password security, recognizing forged documents, and protecting personal information. "What's this, sweetheart?" she asked. "I'm writing a guide for other kids whose parents might be stealing from them, and for adults who don't know how to spot financial fraud." Incredibly comprehensive, well-written, and sophisticated, that was the document. My daughter started transforming her horrific ordeal into instructional material that other families may benefit from when she was 13 years old. "Iris, this is incredible. Where did you learn to write like this?" "I've been researching family financial fraud for weeks. You'd be surprised how common it is." The document was saved. As I read her straightforward, actionable advice, I glared at the screen. "Mrs. Henderson at school asked me to present this to the PTA next month. Apparently, 3 other families in our district have discovered similar problems with missing money and identity theft. She had to overcome more than what Dorian had inflicted upon us. She was turning it into a weapon that could defend itself and others." She shut her laptop and gave me a serious look, asking, "How do you feel about presenting this to adults?" I asked her. Nervous but excited. "Most people don't understand how easy it is to protect yourself if you just know what to look for." "Mom, I have a question for you. Are you embarrassed by what I did to Dad?" I was taken aback by the question, but Mom assured me that it would be considered. "Ashamed?" "Emmy, you've been looking at me differently lately, as if you're worried about me. You saved us. You protected our family when I couldn't." Sitting on her bed, I deliberated over my words. "I'm not worried about what you did, sweetheart. I'm worried about what it cost you. What you accomplished was amazing, but it required you to become someone harder than any child should have to be." I asked, "Do you think I'm damaged?" And the response was a resounding, no. For a brief moment, Iris felt like my little girl again, rather than the powerful person she had grown into, as she leaned against me. "I think you're stronger than I ever imagined possible. But I also think that strength came with a price, and I want to make sure you're okay with who you're becoming." "I don't feel damaged, Mom. I feel like I finally understand how the world really works. And understanding something means you can protect yourself from it. What about protecting others? That's why I'm writing the guide. If I can help other families avoid what we went through, then maybe something good came from Dad's choices." As I put Iris into bed that night, she asked me a final question that made me proud and shattered my heart all at the same time. "Do you think Dad ever really loved us?" "I think he loved the idea of us. But when loving us became inconvenient, he chose himself instead." That's what I thought too. She brought her elephant closer to her. "Good night, Mom," I murmured softly. "Good night, my darling." I switched off the light in her room and remained standing in the corridor, taking in Dr. Reeves's words. Perhaps the Iris wasn't broken. Perhaps she was molded into the ideal form to succeed in a society where those you trust can betray you entirely. Perhaps my child wasn't wounded beyond repair. Perhaps the remarkable young woman I was nurturing would one day defend others with the same ferocity with which she had shielded us. My anxious supervisor came over to me while I was stacking children's books at the Millburg Community Library 6 months later. A woman in a neat suit was waiting at the front desk with a notepad. "Sarah, there's a reporter here asking about your daughter," Linda murmured, her eyes darting to her. Every beat ceased. "What kind of reporter?" "She says she's investigating the Ingrid Sterling embezzlement case. Apparently someone tipped her off that the anonymous whistleblower might be connected to our area." I made my way to the front desk on unstable legs. The journalist put out her hand and grinned professionally. "Mrs. Arden, I'm Jennifer Walsh from Channel 7 News. I'm doing a follow-up story on the Sterling financial fraud scandal. I understand your ex-husband was involved." "I can't comment on that," I swiftly responded. Nationwide interest in the story has grown. Not only is Ingrid Sterling facing federal charges, but multiple other victims have also spoken out. "Someone went to great lengths to document the crimes. We would like to express our gratitude to whomever provided the evidence." Following her departure, I drove tremblingly to our modest apartment across town. Upon my arrival, I found Iris seated at the kitchen table, engrossed in her studies. "There was a reporter at the library today asking about the Ingrid Sterling case," I pointed out. Keeping her head down, Iris worked on her math paper. "They'll never connect it to me. I used 7 different proxy servers and cryptocurrency payments for all the anonymous accounts." "Iris, it's fine, Mom. She's good. Additional victims will come forward as the case gains greater publicity." After solving one difficulty, she went on to the next. "I have been keeping an eye on the news reports. As a result of Ingrid's deceitful investment plans, 12 other families have informed the authorities." I was still taken aback by how casually she addressed the nationwide significance of her work on financial crime investigations. Like a completed scientific experiment, my daughter proudly informed me that she had sparked a government probe that was now safeguarding scores of families. A game-changing email arrived 3 weeks later to Iris. She was approached by Secure Family, a tech company, about a youth development program role after they had discovered her true name. "They're offering me a full scholarship to any college I want, plus a guaranteed job after graduation," Iris continued, displaying the official letter on her laptop. "Salary would start at $135,000 a year." I gazed at the figures on the screen. "Iris, this is incredible. This could set you up for life." Her words were a simple, "I know." And she shut the laptop abruptly. "I'm turning it down." "What? Why?" She jumped up and made her way to the window in our cozy living room, explaining, "Because they want to own what I create. They want me to build security software that makes money off people's fear instead of actually protecting them. Besides, I already have a job." "What do you mean?" From her bag, Iris retrieved a business card. It seems to have been expertly crafted. "E. Arden, Family Financial Protection Consultant. I've been helping families secure their finances and recover from fraud for the past month." I read the card and studied the clean design and expert contact information. "I have 6 regular clients now, and they pay me $90 an hour for consultations." And I accepted the card. "Iris, you're 13 years old. How are you running a consulting business? Age is irrelevant when it comes to working online. My clients believe I am an adult cybersecurity specialist with a focus on family protection." She displayed her salary in a spreadsheet that she had opened on her laptop. The figures were mind-boggling, but I've made enough to replace most of my college fund already. "I worked at the library for 3 months, but my adolescent daughter made more in only 1. "What kind of services do you provide?" "I help families identify financial red flags, secure their digital accounts, and recover stolen money. Last week I helped a family in Ohio get back $45,000 their son had stolen from his grandmother's retirement account." "Is it legal?" "Everything I do is completely legal. I teach people how to protect themselves and help them file appropriate reports with authorities when crimes have been committed." Iris reduced the spreadsheet's size. That night I stumbled upon an article about the Ingrid Sterling case online. I'm also speaking at a cybersecurity conference next month as Dr. E. Arden, Family Protection Specialist. I'll participate via encrypted video conference, so my age won't be an issue. Indeed, the story had gained a lot of attention from major media sites and spread rapidly throughout various social media platforms. Many people felt strongly about the scam, and some even praised the unknown hero who had uncovered it. I was particularly interested in one comment thread where a large number of people were recounting personal stories of financial treachery within their families. All too common: relatives taking advantage of the elderly, parents stealing from their children, and partners concealing wealth. Iris's deeds had unleashed a deluge of parallel narratives. Nobody thought the whistleblower was a girl of 12. Iris asked me a question that completely halted me 2 months into our new life. Mom, ever wonder if Dad ever feels remorse for his actions? I was about to drop the plate I was holding as we washed the dishes together after dinner. She hadn't brought up Dorian in weeks until now. I don't know, sweetheart. Why do you ask? I've been keeping an eye on his social media. He talks about being fresh and making better decisions, but he never brings us up. She delicately wiped a glass. I was wondering if he realizes what he lost. What do you think? Iris thought about it for a while. I think regret is just feeling sorry for yourself when you face consequences. It's not the same as understanding why what you did was wrong. Do you want him to regret it? She carefully folded the dish towel and put it on the hook, saying, No. I want him to understand it, but I don't think he's capable of that level of self-awareness. She evidently no longer wanted to talk about her father and had filed the topic away. The arrival of spring brought with it a hopeful warmth. As Iris's consulting practice expanded, she began developing free instructional materials to help families avoid falling victim to financial scams. She laid down detailed protocols for reporting various forms of financial crime, as well as security checks and warning sign guides. As she worked on her most recent project one evening, she confided in me, I want to turn this into a nonprofit when I turn 18. It will provide free protection services to families who can't afford private consultants. That's a beautiful goal, Iris. It started because of what Dad did to us, but it's become something bigger. There are so many families out there being victimized by people they trust. I was reading in the living room one spring evening when I overheard Iris on a video call in her room. As I listened to her soft voice, I stood outside her door. I know it's scary discovering that your mother has been using your college fund, she pointed out, but you're going to be okay. I'm going to help you protect what's left and make sure this doesn't happen again. It dawned on me that she was probably chatting with another adolescent. Maybe one whose family was going through the same kind of devastation as ours. Children whose parents had abandoned them found solace in Iris. The most important thing to remember, she said, is that this isn't your fault. Adults are supposed to protect children, not steal from them. When they don't do their job, we have to protect ourselves. Tears welled up in my eyes as I stepped away from her door. Not out of melancholy, but sheer awe. Despite Dorian's best efforts, he managed to create something impenetrable out of us. Through her ordeal, Iris had channeled her suffering into a calling to shield other families from harm. As usual the following morning, Iris showed up to breakfast dressed like a typical 9th grader. At this point, though, I had a better understanding. She was an incredible person beneath her typical teenage facade. She had transformed the worst thing that had ever happened to her into a powerful force for good. Are you all set to start the school year? I inquired, planting a kiss on her forehead. Always, she remarked, slinging her rucksack over her shoulder. Oh, and Mom, I love you. I love you too, sweetheart. Observing her make her way to the bus stop made me realize that our family hadn't been ruined by Dorian's treachery. Our true nature has been exposed. Beyond justice, Iris had triumphed. Not only had she gained her own future, but she was also utilizing it to ensure the future of innumerable other families. Whatever was left of Dorian's new life may be his. Using the remnants he had left behind, we had constructed something of far greater worth. Iris was spreading the word about the hope we had built. If you were captivated by this narrative about a 12-year-old's journey towards digital justice, please give it a like right now. When Iris finally spoke to her father and said, "You chose her, so live with her," before ending the call, it was my favorite part. Can you tell me the highlight?